Workers' rights. What hope for a more social Europe? Our guest this week, Reiner Hoffmann, chairman of the German Trade Union Federation.
Mr. Hoffmann, your mother was a cleaning lady, your father a bricklayer. You lead more than 6 million union members. You speak regularly with the Chancellor, negotiate with executives. Are you proud of yourself?
It's an unusual career, I'll give you that. When I look back at my younger years, I had no idea that I'd one day be heading the German Trade Union Federation.
You're considered a pragmatist, consensus-minded. Is that the right approach for someone spearheading the country's labor movement?
I think my 93% of the vote speaks for itself, at least among the 400 delegates. And being consensus-minded means being able to do both as needed. Social partnership is based on strength, not weakness. And when we have to, we can play by different rules too.
You're taking over a well-oiled organization, and you can be pretty satisfied with the current government. The Conservatives and the SPD are both catering to workers. What's left for you to do?
Plenty. The policies in the coalition contract and being introduced as legislation are important reforms, but they're not nearly enough. A quarter of our workforce is stuck in a low-wage sector. That's a scandal for one of the richest nations in the EU. We need to revamp the labor market. We need rules for temporary work contracts. We need to reform part-time work and make the workplace more humane. We need workers to have more of a voice, because we've seen that the possibilities open to worker representation on the shop floor won't suffice to meet the future challenges of labor. Additional burdens in factories and offices are presenting new tasks for us. And most of all, we need a change of course when it comes to Europe. So even with the current coalition, there's lots for us to do.
But milestones, including a higher minimum wage and earlier retirement benefits, now possible from age 63, point in a different direction, namely to make workers more comfortable.
It's not just about comfort. First of all, these are corrections that were badly needed. The problems date back to the Schröder government. These corrections are the first steps in that direction. If we really want to raise the status of labor, then it's not just about raising the minimum wage. We have to strengthen collective bargaining rights so that employers and unions can negotiate decent wages, decent work hours, and decent conditions in factories and offices. That's not something a minimum wage can achieve. That's the lowest limit that no one can be allowed to fall beneath. But we want more. We want good work for as many or for all people in this country.
You're getting support from Chancellor Merkel and from international organizations that say wages should climb sharply in Germany to further boost domestic demand. That's all grist for your mill.
It's grist for the mill because Germany is the export world champion. That's a recognized fact. But it can't survive long-term if we don't simultaneously have strong domestic demand that helps boost imports, and over time compensate macroeconomic imbalances, especially within the Eurozone. That's why we're calling for demand-side policy combined with strong hikes in real income. And not just for Germany. We need a European growth program so that the crisis-hit nations of Southern Europe get back on their feet. And here the policy of the former center-right government was a complete disaster. It went in completely the wrong direction. And with the new German government, I think we still have a lot of convincing to do so that European policy gets back on the right track. We're doing that in the context of the European elections on May 25th. We're going to use it when the new European Commission is being chosen. And we're definitely going to call on the new Commission to introduce a change of policy in Europe that's not just about painful austerity without ignoring necessary structural reforms. But the focus has to be on promoting growth and therefore jobs, good jobs.
You say that so easily, a growth and investment program for Europe. Do you have a master plan for the European debt and financial crisis?
I'm not claiming that we have a master plan, but at least we have the better solutions, which policymakers are also listening to. They include having decent rules on international financial markets. Don't forget, what caused the disastrous 2008 crisis? It was the result of broadly deregulated markets. The neoliberal mainstream dragged Europe and many other regions to the edge of the abyss. We've changed direction since then, for instance with the banking union, which will have new rules. Those are important steps in the right direction, and we have to keep moving forward. I think we're pretty fit as trade unions. I also recognize with satisfaction that some of our proposals for an international financial market architecture are being taken up. That's an important threshold. Moving forward, however, the key will be to mark a new course for macroeconomic policy in Europe. It's not enough for Europe to have a mutual monetary policy, for which the European Central Bank is responsible. We still lack a common European fiscal policy. And the effect, unfortunately, has been that we have fallen into a tax race in Europe that's a race to the bottom. It's not helping economies stabilize, but taking us deeper into the hole if we don't hit the brakes soon.
You know your way around Brussels. What's your main demand there? What has to change across Europe in the interests of workers?
Europe has to be strengthened in its social dimension. That includes finally giving basic social rights precedence over market freedoms. That will convince people. They've lost their trust in market deregulation. They want a Europe with policies for people, not for markets. And once that's put into practice, then trust in the European integration project will climb again too. And in the year 2014, we'd also be well advised to look back. World War I started 100 years ago. World War II, 75 years ago. Then we see what a huge peace project the EU is and remains in European history. But we can move forward only if we succeed in putting social peace in Europe on a firm footing. It's crumbling. And that's why I fear that on May 25th, right-wing populist, anti-EU parties will make gains. None of us wants that. We must fight them, and to do that, we need a change of course toward a more social Europe.
Your counterpart is industry, the factories, entrepreneurs and managers. They've long been operating globally. Can unions catch up and work on a global scale?
We're every bit as globalized as the companies are. It's just not always visible. For instance, we have more than 1,200 works councils in Europe that represent interests across borders in multinational corporations. We have a social dialogue in which we've been able to get some European rules back on the negotiating table. It's reached a standstill and has to be reactivated. In the sectors, we have many European agreements when it comes to improving working conditions at both the national and European level. We have to communicate these experiences more actively to the public. As I said, we're very active even if people don't see most of it. It's a weak point we have to work on, and we will in the coming months and years.
Let's look beyond Europe to Latin America, Asia, Africa. How can you help miners or garment workers in, say, Bangladesh?
Bangladesh is a tragic example of how work safety regulations are violated so much that the core working norms of international labor organizations are negated. There is no free labor movement there. And there we remind the cheapest German and European corporations in wages and work conditions of their obligations. Buying T-shirts for €1.50, selling them here for €5, earning huge profits from appalling conditions 5,000–6,000 kilometers away from here. We have to raise awareness of that. We have to think about the value of products, not just of work, and that pinching pennies really can be deadly, as we saw in the tragic garment factory collapse in Bangladesh. There's a lot we're actively pursuing there with the companies themselves. Their social responsibility doesn't end at national borders. A company's social responsibility has to be international, global, and we're doing well in reminding businesses of their responsibility. Many have responded positively, but many others are dragging their heels. They still don't grasp the matter and continue to reject worker representation. Amazon and Burger King are two names. Disastrous conditions there. We're doing a good job of fighting them, and I'd say with some success.
Mr. Hoffmann, many thanks.
Thank you.